The Supreme Court really seemed to be in some mood today. All the headlines today have come from the court. The Chief Justice is retiring tomorrow, Justice Thakur, and he's made sure that he's delivered many blows to across fields today. And the biggest, of course, came to the Board of Cricket Control. Anurag Thakur sacked along with other cricket officials. Justice Lodha's committee was not implemented by the BCCI. This was the reason. Justice Lodha is on the program now. Justice Lodha, you have caused an earthquake, you and the Supreme Court, of course, in the cricketing and political world. What are your first reactions, sir, to this verdict?
Look, today's order is sequitur to Supreme Court's order of 18 July. If you remember it, on 4 January 2016, we submitted a report to the Supreme Court regarding structural reforms. After hearing BCCI for about 6 months, largely our report was accepted by the Supreme Court on 18 July, and we were given tasks to implement the order. We fixed the timelines as per the order, but there were impediments and obstructions. Timelines were not adhered to by BCCI. We wanted an undertaking to be given by BCCI office bearers, particularly President, that the Supreme Court order will be implemented by them, which they never gave, and we were constrained to submit 3 status reports to the Supreme Court. So obviously now, after hearing them, today's order has come, which I find is a logical consequence to non-implementation and disobedience of 18 July order.
Justice Lodha, you attempted to break the politician cricket nexus, but the part of your recommendations that have been accepted are confined to ministers and bureaucrats. Why not MLAs and MPs, for example?
Look, I think over a period of time, once the structure is put in place, the government officials and the ministers will not be running the affairs of the cricket. Obviously, once it is done in BCCI and state associations, it will percolate down and things would improve. Monopoly would be broken. Talented persons who can administer the game would be controlling the administration. The management and governance, which has been separated by us, would be effective, and that will bring in transparency, accountability, and better governance in the administration of cricket, which is, a passion for every Indian.
So interesting that you did not actually seek a complete ban and you expect it to trickle down. And Justice Lodha, there's also the charge of perjury against Anurag Thakur. How do you see that dimension of the debate?
Sorry, I can't comment on that. I haven't read the order. I believe the matter of perjury is still sub judice before the Supreme Court. There is no definite finding so far, and when the matter is sub judice before the Supreme Court, I'll not comment on that. Supreme Court will assess whether any false evidence was given by the President of BCCI, Mr. Anurag Thakur, or not. It's not proper for me to comment on that.
Now, Anurag Thakur, Justice Lodha, the sacked BCCI president, who wished you good luck today and said good luck if retired judges are now going to judge and determine the fate of cricket in this country. He had 3 criticisms of your committee. One was that you did not give him and the board enough time. He spoke about how the state associations were not coming on board and he needed more time to bring them on board. He said if your recommendations were actually implemented, they would create what he called chaos in the cricketing world. And thirdly, he said that you did not have the expertise to really determine the fate of cricket. How do you see Anurag Thakur's criticisms of your committee?
Look, these observations were not fair. If you remember it, we submitted a report on 4 January after talking to large number of people, including all stakeholders, players, administrators, journalists, and all who have love for the game. And after we submitted our report, BCCI had reservations about our recommendations. They objected tooth and nail to some of our recommendations. They had battery of lawyers. All of them were heard by the Supreme Court. Many state associations had also filed representation and objections to our report. They all were heard on 18 July the Supreme Court passed the order accepting broadly everything what we said except one or two recommendations. Then in its order of 18 July, Supreme Court wanted its order to be implemented within 4 to 6 months. Now, as soon as the committee was given that task, we invited Mr. Thakur and Mr. Shirke to appear before us so that we could have discussed the matter with them. Unfortunately, Mr. Thakur did not appear as Parliament was going on, and Mr. Shirke did appear. We discussed the matter with him, fixed the timelines, having regard to the direction given by the Supreme Court that its order was to be implemented within 4 to 6 months. In the first phase of timelines, when we found that there were obstructions, they were not implementing, we wanted them to file an undertaking before the committee that they would adhere to the timelines and obey the Supreme Court order. They did not furnish even undertaking before us. We were constrained to submit the status report, and thereafter also timelines were not followed. We were constrained to submit 2 more reports, and in the meanwhile, when the last order of October was passed, they made an application before the committee to appear and discuss. Now, 2 things should have been clear to them. We could not have changed our report, which has got the seal of approval from the Supreme Court. It became the order of the Supreme Court. The highest court had passed the verdict. The committee could not have changed the Supreme Court verdict. So far as timelines were concerned, they were basically founded on the period given by the Supreme Court. Still, we kept actually that application pending as the matter was sub judice before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court was to consider the status report submitted by us, and now today's order has come. So it is unfair to say that the state associations or the office bearers were not given enough time.
Now, but Justice Lodha, the biggest criticism, and that's not come from Anurag Thakur, it has come from several other commentators, has been that this verdict is an instance of judicial overreach, that the courts are meddling into areas that really are not their domain. There is a retired judge, Justice Karju, who's argued that the BCCI was registered under the Tamil Nadu Registrars Act, and therefore, as a society, only it has the authority to change its own laws. So, how do you respond to this criticism of judicial overreach?
Look, Barkha, all these things were argued before the Supreme Court before 18 July. Once, a person argues the matter, puts forth his objections, if those objections are not accepted, ultimately the judiciary has been given power to interpret the laws and decide the matters. So, after the Supreme Court verdict on 18 July, look, if somebody says that it was an overreach by the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court exceeded its brief, look, I can't, it's not for me to comment. Everyone knows the role of judiciary and that the judgment passed by the Supreme Court is a final word and which has to be accepted even if one has reservation about the order or the verdict.
So, what about the final criticism that cricket is not your expertise? The BCCI says, come on, we manage one of the best performing sort of teams in the world, so we must be doing something right. And what does Justice Lodha know about cricket?
Look, whether it's sports, whether it's, technological things, whether it's intellectual properties, whether it's a air crash, whenever problem comes and some judicial determination is needed or reforms are needed, it is the judges who are asked to do that, because a judicial skill which judges over a period of time acquires, one does not have to expertise of everything. That experience and the objectivity, the discussion with the stakeholders gave sufficient light to judicial mind to do the best and suggest the reforms. So, of course, we are not experts. We have never administered cricket, and to that extent, that is right. But to say that committee could not have or committee did not have expertise to submit the structural reforms, I think is not, understanding the judicial mind properly.
So what for you was the most disturbing thing about how cricket is managed in India?
No, the problem is, the same people, who have been in administration for years and decades continue to control the game. There are few states where, families are governing the game. It's a personal fiefdom. Now, it's not that in a country of, 1.28 billion people, there are only 28 persons who are capable and competent to administer the game. We have pool of talented people. There are cricketers, they are good cricket administrators, they are managers, they can do even better. So they need to be given opportunity. There has to be level playing field. It can't be fiefdom of few. No game can be permitted to be controlled by few. Everyone should be given opportunity. And we applied best practices to ensure that management in cricket administration is professional. There is a good governance and something that brings in transparency and accountability. And I believe that if our recommendations are implemented objectively and honestly, it will improve the administration and of course it will be better for the game.
I do want to ask you in the end, while today of course it's a BJP leader Anurag Thakur who's been removed, the irony sir is that it was a Congress politician who was a lawyer, Kapil Sibal for the BCCI, it's a Congress politician Rajiv Shukla who administers the IPL. So in Hindi as they would say, did you find that irrespective of party isme sab bhi neta mile hue hain?
Look, I'll not say that, but it is sure. They may be from different political parties, but once they enter the closed chamber of BCCI, they believe in one philosophy and they try to monopolize the BCCI administration.
The one thing that the Congress and the BJP will always agree on, the nexus that Justice Lodha, your committee, has sought to break amid much debate around this verdict. Thank you so much for joining us on the Buck Stops here. And that's it on the program. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m.